When a young man deep into purity culture became addicted to dirty videos on the internet, he couldn't deal with the shame. After trying and failing at a facility designed to help him with his addiction, he instead decided that a massacre would be the best outlet for his frustrations. We've covered a lot of different massacres on this channel that all have their different little odd motivations behind them. Usually it comes down to people wanting to get revenge on society in one way or another, or make some sort of point for their cause. Or, impress ghost girls. This might be the first time we've ever talked about one where the reasoning is, oddly enough, sexual temptation. Today we have the story of a man named Robert Aaron Long. Since it seems like he went by Aaron and that's how everyone actually knew him, let's address him that way. Aaron was 21 years old at the time of this story, born and raised in Woodstock, Georgia. He was a part of the 2017 graduating class at Sequoia High School, moving on to attend the University of North Georgia, specifically the Cumming campus. And yeah, it's actually spelled that way, honestly it works as a bit of foreshadowing. When it came to his daily life, Aaron listed his interest on his Instagram, writing, "Pizza, guns, drums, music, family, and God. That pretty much sums up my life. It's a pretty good life." Aaron had a completely clean record with no interactions with the police in his entire life, aside from possibly some traffic tickets. In fact, he was the kind of typical kid who was very invested within his church. A lot of people said that he was squeaky clean, and some felt that he was even a bit too prude. He was very deep into the Southern Baptist scene, but not really the regular scene. His church was very big on purity culture, which is staunchly against sex before marriage, pornography, or really anything along those lines. A student who went to school with Aaron later spoke of him, saying, "He was very innocent-seeming and wouldn't even cuss. He was sorta nerdy and didn't seem violent from what I remember. He was a hunter, and his father was a youth minister or pastor. He was big into religion." Both he and his parents were very active at Krabappel First Baptist Church, to be specific. Aaron became a member on the youth ministry team in the church and even went to Costa Rica on a mission trip in 2017. The story of Aaron's literal coming-to-Jesus moment was featured on the church's website and circulated fairly widely. On the video, Aaron stated, referring to his baptism, "I ran away living completely for myself, and he still wants me, and so that's when I was saved." However, not all was well. Aaron began to call himself a sex addict despite not actually having sex. It seemed that he was more into looking at naughty videos on his phone and simply thinking about the act, but that alone was enough to make him feel like he had an addiction. Telling his parents that he had this addiction, he began to attend a treatment facility called Hope Quest in 2020 to deal with these inner demons. He told the staff that he was a tortured soul due to his sexual desires, adding that he was deeply religious and that he shouldn't be thinking this way. His roommates at this facility said that, while he seemed to be racked with extreme feelings of guilt, he would still slip away and go to various massage parlors to get some happy endings throughout his stay. Still though, this roommate said that Aaron was actually very kind and would often cook food for all of the housemates. He said that, while he would usually seem in good spirits, he would clearly become very shaken when the subject of addiction came up. This roommate said that he had a good case of self-hatred, stating, "It was something that would absolutely torture him. He was a deeply religious person. He would often go on tangents about his interpretation of the Bible." Even after leaving the facility, Aaron wasn't really doing much better. In fact, he was doing a lot worse. After he started doing nothing but sitting around and watching pornography on his phone for hours on end every single day, his parents decided to kick him out of the house. Afterwards, Aaron became very emotional and angry, storming out of the house with his phone containing his spank bank in hand. It seems that Aaron went to stay with one of his previous housemates that he stayed friends with now that he was out of his parents' house. The next morning, Aaron's friend heard him watching his favorite videos on his phone all morning from about 9 a.m. to noon. Once Aaron finally left the room, his roommate mentioned what he had heard. Knowing how prone Aaron was to relapses, he asked him if he wanted to talk about it. Aaron reacted very angrily, telling him that he didn't want to talk about it before storming out of the house. This friend didn't really realize how much getting caught in the act really had humiliated Aaron. In fact, he was feeling so much shame from getting caught by one of the people who knew the depths of his addiction that he felt he should end his life out of pure embarrassment. However, he couldn't do it. So instead, Aaron decided that he would kill others. He felt that this would make for a perfect two birds, one stone type of situation. He would kill a number of people that he felt were sources of sexual temptation, and while doing so, he would rack up enough guilt that he would be able to end his own life as well. He decided that he would head out to a few different massage parlors in the area, heavily speculated to be a few places that he either visited or intended on visiting. He had 3 places in mind, all of which appeared on an online guide to brothels, 2 of which had multiple prostitution busts over the years, although notably not since 2013. He then set out to buy some supplies. While Aaron was a hunter, he didn't really have the type of gun that would be good for killing multiple people in quick succession. He went to a gun shop in Holly Springs and purchased a 9mm handgun along with a box of 50 bullets. He had decided that, even though every fiber of his being was telling him not to do this, this was something he simply had to do. For that, he needed all the help he could get. So he then drove over to a liquor store, feeling that getting a little drunk would give him some courage. He began driving towards a place called Young's Asian Massage, swigging bourbon all the way while driving. He parked in the parking lot and continued to drink until he was fairly wasted, saying that he simply sat in his car and imagined killing people inside while loading his new gun. He was seen on CCTV footage sitting in the parking lot for about an hour before exiting his car. It hadn't even been 3 hours since he left his friend's house when Aaron exited his car and made his way towards Young's. Going inside, Aaron then paid for a massage service. This service ended at about 4:45 p.m. Afterwards, Aaron went to use the bathroom at the back of the building. Another customer came in through the front door of the business at this time, saying that everything seemed just as normal as ever. That was about to change. Aaron emerged from the bathroom, pulling out his handgun and quickly aiming it towards a customer in the building, Paul Andrew Michaels. Paul was sitting in the back of the building near the restrooms, using his phone while leaning over a counter. By the time he even noticed what was happening, Aaron had shot him once in the head. Aaron then proceeded to walk back towards the front of the business, shooting at anyone he could find. Dao Yufeng was working in room 3 when she decided to poke her head out of the room to see what was happening, hearing the first gunshot. Aaron, seeing her head pop right into his vision, shot her once as well. The customer in the room with her dove behind the counter right after, seeing the woman who had just been rubbing his neck collapse to the ground in a pool of blood right in front of him. Aaron moved towards another room where Xiao Jie-tan was working. She, hearing multiple gunshots at this point, was hiding in the room, hoping that she wouldn't be found. However, Aaron entered the room and shot her point blank in the head. Aaron then made his way over to another room where a customer was hiding behind a massage table. The customer fell to the floor and begged Aaron not to shoot him. Aaron simply asked the man to look up. Even though the customer did as he said, Aaron shot him in the face as well. Oddly enough, this man survived being shot nearly point blank in the face, collapsing to the ground for the time being. Delana Ashley Yuan was at the massage parlor with her husband, Mario Gonzalez, to get a couples massage. At the time being, they were in 2 separate rooms. Delana was hiding down in a corner of the room when Aaron entered. He shot her, with the bullet exiting her body and flying straight into the business next door. After, Aaron simply made his way out the front door and left the building. He quickly walked back to his car and hopped in, exiting the parking lot very quickly. All in all, the shooting didn't last even 10 minutes, with Aaron leaving a little after 4:50 p.m. He wasn't done there, though. He still had more plans for the day. Of the few people in the building that day, only 6 were left uninjured. Many of them simply only survived because Aaron didn't enter their rooms in the first place. It basically all came down to luck as he shot at anyone who he happened to see. One customer waited for about 1 minute after he heard the gunfire stop. Hearing the door chime, meaning that Aaron had probably left, he ran outside, grabbed a gun from his own car, and called 911. The police got this first call at 4:54 p.m. and were on the scene within minutes. Unfortunately, they had lost Aaron completely during those few short moments. They found 2 people already dead from gunshot wounds and a further 3 severely wounded. While all of the wounded were taken to the hospital, 2 would pass away very quickly, with only the man shot in the face surviving. While searching, the police found 1 man, unharmed, sitting on a bed in one of the rooms Aaron didn't enter. This man was Mario Gonzalez, the husband of one of the victims. Finding him suspicious, the police cuffed him and threw him into the back of the patrol car. He frantically told them that he didn't even see the shooter, asking what had happened to his wife. They took him to the station and held him for about 4 hours before finally releasing him. Very quickly after the first shooting, the police released the CCTV footage of Aaron entering Young's to the public, asking for any help they could get in identifying him. Surprisingly, none other than Aaron's own parents contacted them very shortly afterwards. They were soon interviewed by the police. All the while, Aaron was on his way to his next target. At another massage parlor, Gold Spa, a woman named Yoonji Lee was sleeping in the break room while her co-worker, Yoonjae Kang, was waiting for a ride home when they both began to hear odd noises. These noises, as you may assume, were gunshots, likely the gunshots that killed one of their co-workers, Hyun-jung Grant. They heard their co-worker, Soon-chung Park, walk out of the break room kitchen and ask, "What's that?" Shortly after, another co-worker, Sun-cha Kim, let out a scream before falling silent. Kang peeked out of the break room to see what was happening, seeing Park lying on the ground in the hallway just outside. There, she made quick eye contact with a man brandishing a gun nearby. She fell back into the break room and grabbed Yoonji Lee, taking her into hiding with her. Kang hid under a blanket in the room while Lee got behind a large box in the corner. Aaron then came into the room, firing 2 shots at Kang as she hid under the blanket. Although the 2 shots had missed, this caused her to scream in fright. Luckily, Aaron likely took this as a sign that he had hit her, and satisfied, he left the room. 3 of their co-workers had died that day, now along with the 4 who had died in the previous attack, bringing the current total up to 7. Kang said of the attack, "He also tried to shoot me. He just didn't shoot Yoonji because he didn't see her. I don't know if I should be glad. It hurts to be alive and talk about this." While Lee said, "He didn't say a word. I think that alone shows how premeditated and bent on a motive he was." Without dwelling too long on Gold Spa, Aaron decided to speed up the attack. He quickly left the building and went across the street to a different business, one called Aromatherapy Spa. There he briefly went inside the building, shooting one more person from the doorway, a worker named Young A. Yue, before leaving once again and getting into his car, fleeing the area. It appeared that his gun had jammed during this attack, likely preventing more deaths before he was forced to retreat for the time being. When everything grew quiet, Kang called 911, still in a whisper. Even then, she didn't think that any of her co-workers were dead. Given that she was fired towards but never hit, she thought that the attacker was a robber who was only firing blanks to intimidate them.
"We need a robbery here, that guy, that's why. Need a police.
It's a robbery there?
Yeah. They have a gun, but it's like not a real gun, that's why."
It was now a little after 5:45 and Aaron was on the road once again. This time he was hoping to cross state lines before continuing his attack. The police quickly came to assume that all of the different spa attacks were linked, given that they all had more or less the same MO and occurred in order in quick succession. They sent a few other officers out to different spas in the area and even called in the FBI to help assist with the investigation. When it came to the investigation, though, they weren't going to have to look much further. A few investigators were still talking to Aaron's parents, both during and after the attack at Gold Spa and Aromatherapy. His parents told the police that Aaron's car still had a tracking device equipped, one that they would be able to access. Once they did so, the police were quickly able to see where Aaron was, on the highway heading towards Florida. Aaron had been on the road for quite a while now. It was 8:30 p.m., over 3 hours since the last attack took place. Police were able to spot Aaron's car about 150 miles south of Atlanta in Crisp County. There, they chased him down Interstate 75. Seeing that Aaron wasn't going to stop, they performed a pit maneuver and sent his car spinning off the road. Seeing the writing on the wall, Aaron gave up and surrendered to the police without any more of a fight. The police arrested Aaron on the spot and grabbed his 9mm from his car. Given that he was caught on CCTV at Young's Massage first, he was initially arrested for that shooting only. However, it wasn't too long at all before he was arrested for the others as well. Aaron plainly told the police that he was responsible for all of the attacks and admitted that he was heading towards Florida to, in his own words, do more acts. In the end, 7 women and 1 man were dead, with 1 more man severely wounded. Given that 6 of the victims were Asian women, it quickly became speculated as to whether or not there was a specific racial motive behind the crime, given that the public knew very little about Aaron at this point. The police released the names of the victims to the public a few days after the shooting. 1 day after that, on March 17th, Aaron was officially charged with 8 counts of murder and 1 count of aggravated assault. Given that he had confessed to all of the killings, it wasn't hard to charge him with any of them. He told the police that, originally, he wanted to end his own life. It was shortly after that he decided to target these businesses to, in his mind, help out others dealing with sex addiction. He felt that eliminating these sources of temptation might help others like him. Quickly after all of this came to light, Aaron's church deleted their whole Facebook page, which included pictures and videos of Aaron. On the church's official website, a statement was written, saying that these were the acts of a sinful heart and a depraved mind. They wrote, "We want to be clear that this extreme and wicked act is nothing less than rebellion against our holy God and His Word. The shootings were a total repudiation of our faith and practice, and such actions are completely unacceptable and contrary to the gospel." They added that Aaron was now permanently out of their membership, continuing by saying, "We can no longer affirm that he is truly a regenerate believer in Jesus Christ." Eventually, the church was dissolved altogether when it merged with another church in the area and began going by a completely different name entirely. A company in the Atlanta area that had recently hired Aaron had a blog post on their website introducing their new employee. Once they had heard about what he had done, they completely scrubbed any trace of him from their website or records. While Aaron said that the shootings weren't racially motivated at all, and they were more motivated by a desire to eliminate sources of his sex addiction, many people weren't really buying it. Many found it odd that he specifically only targeted Asian massage parlors from this online list of brothels, although it is hard to say what he might have hit up next when he made his way out to Florida. Many people in the media called for the crime to be designated as a hate crime, while many others felt that the media was simply rushing to conclusions without knowing much about the case yet and were intent on creating a reason for the attack without actual confirmation on why it took place. Given that Aaron hadn't even told the police much about his motives and the police hadn't released his statements, there wasn't really much to go on. The South Korean Foreign Affairs Ministry went on to report that 4 of the dead were ethnically Korean and that 1 of them was still a South Korean citizen. This led to a lot of reporting on the case within South Korean media as well, arguably even more reporting than in the American media. On March 18th, Joe Biden had all the flags at the White House, on federal grounds, on naval vessels, military installations, and on U.S. diplomatic missions to be flown at half-mast until March 22nd to honor the victims in the shooting. He met with various local Asian American community leaders to discuss the shootings the next day. Afterwards, he gave a speech condemning hate crimes, especially the increasing amount of them since the beginning of COVID, giving his support for a proposed hate crime act that would tackle anti-Asian crimes more specifically. Eventually, that act was voted in, allowing for the Justice Department to review and analyze crimes related to COVID and establish a database. It was signed into effect on May 20th. According to one South Korean newspaper, the Chosun Ilbo, a worker at a nearby Korean restaurant said that a person had escaped from Gold Spa, ran over there, and said that the gunman was shouting, "I'm going to kill all Asians." However, this same restaurant worker later changed up the story, saying that it wasn't someone fleeing from Gold Spa, but instead a unspecified police officer that had told him this. There was a lot of outcry online when it was noticed that the Western media wasn't reporting on this talking point. But that one single newspaper that claims to have spoken to an unspecified restaurant worker who changed his story between articles was really the only source for the story that Aaron had shouted about killing all Asians. It was actually contradictory to the fact that all of the survivors had said that he was completely silent and that he fired at 3 people who weren't Asian at all. After a while, NBC debated on running this part of the story, but they weren't able to verify any of the reports. One of the survivors, Kang, said that she and the other survivors within Gold Spa didn't hear Aaron say a single word. Lee confirmed this as well. Kang said, "He was silent. He didn't ask for anything. He simply came to kill. He came to murder in cold blood those who had nothing against him." Things got even more complicated when the Chinese media began reporting on the case. While it isn't known where it was first picked up, a Facebook post seemingly made by Aaron was circulating around the internet. This post was picked up by various Chinese news sources and spread even further. Within the post, it appeared that Aaron had blamed China for COVID, calling China the greatest evil of our time. However, this post was found to have been created through a fake Facebook screenshot generator. While the screenshot was made to appear to be very recent, the post used Facebook's older style of lettering, specifically around the username, likely because the post generator hadn't been updated. The post also used a photo of Aaron most widely circulated within the media, not his actual profile picture on Facebook. If there was any doubt, Facebook themselves came out and stated that the post wasn't actually from Aaron's profile, adding that they were going to start deleting reposts of it in order to fight misinformation surrounding the case. A spokesperson stated, "We've confirmed that these screenshots are fake and we're removing them from the platform for violating our policies." One of Aaron's previous sex addiction housemates spoke out about him as well, having lived with him for several months in 2020. He said that Aaron didn't speak much about his addiction, but also never spoke about anything racial in nature. However, he did state that he hadn't been in contact with Aaron for quite a long time. If it was true that this attack was racially motivated, which it may or may not have been, all of this misinformation only really served to muddy the waters and made it harder to tell conclusively. With Aaron on one hand denying that race was even a factor, but people on the other end arguing that it must have been, at least in some capacity, we'll likely never really know for certain. Some more controversy came about when Captain Jay Baker of the Cherokee County Sheriff's Department made a statement about what Aaron has said in custody, one that a lot of people felt seemed a bit sarcastic. He said, "He was pretty much fed up and kind of at the end of his rope, and I guess it was a really bad day for him, and this is what he did." People online really didn't like that he called it a really bad day, and looked into the captain's activity online and found that he had quite a bit of anti-China statements that he had made over the years. This led people to wonder if he would really investigate the case quite as well as he should. Some people went as far as saying that Captain Baker was a sympathizer with Aaron. Ted Liu, a representative from California, asked for the FBI to conduct their investigation independently, feeling that the police force would be biased, worrying that it wouldn't be taken seriously enough. The sheriff's department actually responded and released a statement responding to all the criticism. They said that they regretted Baker's words, saying that this would be a difficult task, but not mentioning Baker's Facebook posts. Baker was, however, removed from being the spokesman on the investigation. All of the backlash caused them to debate on handing the case off to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation entirely. Several different politicians were also concerned with how easily Aaron was able to buy a gun. He went out, bought it, and went on his attack within only a few hours on the day of. It had seemed that his background check was completed within 100 seconds, with a Georgia state senator saying that it was easier and quicker for him to buy a gun than it would have been to vote. However, even if the background check was more thorough with criminals with prior records, Aaron still didn't have anything in his background that would have prohibited him from buying one. As it usually goes when any religious person commits an attack, the idea of religion came under fire as well after this case. In this case, though, many have pointed out that rather than religion itself, purity culture played much more of a role in Aaron's mental state. Purity culture can take place across any religions or even among people who have no religion at all. It has been known to cause people extreme feelings of guilt for having normal human desires in the past, and this case is no different in that regard. Aaron never seems to blame religion specifically for his feelings of extreme guilt, although he has blamed both of his parents and his own specific church congregation for highly emphasizing the ideas of maintaining purity. Aaron's day in court finally came. He showed up dressed in a white button-up shirt with gray pants and the usual handcuffs over his wrists. He told the court straight up that his roommate had caught him watching pornography on the morning of the attack and that he was overwhelmed with shame. So he went out, bought a gun in order to use on himself, but eventually decided upon going on a rampage instead. Given that it was very obviously him on the security camera footage from Young's, Aaron pled guilty to that shooting where 4 people were killed and 1 more was injured. Here he told the court his whole plan for the massacre, saying, "My hope is that I would hate myself enough at that point and possess enough self-loathing to end my life. I was scared of ending myself. I wanted to try to overcome that so I could, so I went up to the liquor store." Pleading guilty to a whopping 23 charges against him, Aaron was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. When it came as to whether or not the case was a hate crime, the Cherokee County District Attorney ruled that there wasn't any evidence of a specific racial motivation in the case. The Fulton County District Attorney disagreed and believed that both gender and race played a major role in the crime, hoping to pursue an enhancement in the charges at some point in the future. Interestingly, the attorney said that it was the choice of the families of the victims not to pursue the death penalty, saying, "The defendant was merciless in his actions, but the surviving victims and the families of the murdered victims chose to request mercy, preferring that this defendant spend every remaining day of his life in prison faced with the memories of his own monstrosity." Aaron is still facing charges, namely of murder, for the attacks on Gold Spa and Aromatherapy Spa. Likely because he wasn't caught on video, he has chosen not to plead guilty in these killings. You may think that this is pointless if he's going to be in prison for the rest of his life anyway, but there actually is a reasoning to it. The prosecutors in Atlanta aren't planning on being so generous and actually do plan on pursuing the death penalty. In fact, they have already filed the papers seeking it specifically. The trial is still ongoing, and 3 years after the fact, it's still unclear when it will ever take place. Originally, it was pushed back time and time again due to COVID concerns, but even since lockdowns have been lifted, there seems to be very little progress in even getting a trial date. For one, Aaron's attorneys have been filing motion after motion on his behalf, pushing to have the death penalty suggestion taken off the table due to his young-ish age. They also demanded for the media to be kept out of the trial, but any attempts at this haven't been successful. Not only that, but the judge in Aaron's case, Judge Earl Glanville, has been extremely preoccupied with a more high-profile racketeering case against a local rapper, Young Thug. Either way, even if he may face the death penalty someday, Aaron Long is still in prison for life regardless. He is currently being held at the Georgia Diagnostic and Classification Prison in Butts County. Coincidentally, this is the same prison that houses the state's execution chamber. Aaron never did get his wish to die by his own hand after getting plastered and going on a massacre, but it's very possible that he may die by someone else's hand in due time. Once again, thank you for watching my video. If you found it interesting, please give it a like, it really helps me out in the algorithm, and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I have a podcast going with 4 of my friends called the NBR Podcast. If you find this channel interesting, you might find that one cool as well. I've also opened up a merch store. There you can get yourself some cool Dire Trip t-shirts, coffee mugs, and other stuff. If you want, go ahead and follow me on social media. I also really appreciate when people follow me on Patreon. There you can get videos early, ad-free, and uncensored. Channel memberships are up too, and you can get most of the same benefits there as well. Once again, this has been your host Kyle. Thank you, and good night.